Welcome to episode 4. My name is Carrie Morin. I'm the coordinator for the Center for Teaching Excellence here at Goodwin College. I'm also an adjunct professor, and I was a member of Cohort 2 for the Universal Design for Learning.
And I am Dana Sheehan, and I am an assistant professor of English and Communication, and I was in Cohort 1. And this is our guest, Robin Cournoyer.
Very special guest. And Robin, if you'd like to go ahead and introduce yourself to everyone.
Sure. Thank you both for having me to episode 4. I'm Robin Cournoyer, and I am a full-time faculty in the nursing department here at Goodwin in pediatrics. And I, along with Carrie, was part of Cohort 2.
That's right, the Universal Design for Learning.
Yes.
So as with our previous videos, we'd really just like to, have a conversation with Robin, sit down, ask her a few questions, talk a little bit about UDL, and one of the lessons that she has changed and sort of UDLized for her students. So we can just go ahead and get started. So Robin, what drew you to UDL in the first place?
Well, I've been a nurse for a long time, but the classroom was new to me, so it was very overwhelming in trying to engage the students and not just be the person that was standing up in front. My class is 4 hours long. My students have been either in clinical all day or work all day. They come to me at 5 o'clock at night from 5 to 9. So just to sit there and listen to a lecture, I wouldn't want to have to do that. So I started to think of different ways that I could engage the students, make it interesting, but really have a focus on learning. And so I started to implement some things into my classroom. But when the UDL Cohort 2 became available, I applied to that, hoping to get into that program, which I did, which was wonderful. And I learned so much in that cohort from my peers, which to me was just very exciting, being able to learn from peers and then get ideas and implement that into the classroom.
Wonderful.
We always forget as professors that we don't get to sit in a classroom. We just sit in front of the classroom. So getting to have that moment to go back in the classroom is always a really good time.
That's a really good point.
And it was interesting because we would have an assignment and some of us would do the assignment completely different. And so that made me think, how many times am I outlining an assignment for students and I'm not really being clear with them, or maybe I need to give them different options.
Right. That's true. That's a very good point too. Excellent. Great. So is there one particular lesson that you'd like to share with us that you did actually UDLize that you have for your students?
Yes, and what my biggest struggle is that I have 35 to 40 students in my class. And there's a lot of material. I only get the students for 7 weeks. Initially, what I did was I started to have a review session on a Saturday before they had their final. But because many of our students work full-time, maybe 10 would be able to attend. And so I felt like I wasn't really serving the students to the best of my ability. And so I was always trying to think of how can I create something that's more accessible to them. And so in the cohort, we had assignments each month, which was great because you had to do something. There was a deadline. And my struggle was, as I said, I had so much material to get in this 7-week course. How could I do that? And somebody previously had talked about what's called a Pecha Kucha PowerPoint, and my students don't even like that word because it's too hard to say. They've renamed it Pikachu because it's much easier to say. And how I have it out, or how I have it titled in my class, is just the pediatric PowerPoint review session. And just to give you a little background about the Pecha Kucha PowerPoint, it's actually a Japanese, I know Pecha Kucha, it's very hard to say, isn't it? It comes from a Japanese word, and it's 20 seconds, 20 slides. There's Pecha Kucha presentations all over the country, and the idea behind it is if we have a new idea or we want to pass something on to somebody, you should be able to do that 20 seconds, 20 slides, 4.66 minutes to get your point across. And what the PowerPoints do is they automatically, you only have 20 seconds to talk, and then it's next, and it's next, and it's next. I have not been to a Pecha Kucha conference yet, but I would love to just see all the ideas that people have and how they orchestrate that and just get their point across.
When you put the first one together, how long did it take you to get so you could do it 20 seconds per slide?
That is a great question. And what I modified mine a little bit. Typically, you would put one picture on each slide and then just talk about that slide for 20 seconds. But because I was trying to give them a review that they could utilize to focus their learning, I have mostly like 3 to 4 slides on each. And so the first time that I used it in the classroom, I had way more than 20 seconds of material that I wanted to say, because then it was the next, and then it was the next. To originally do it, it probably took 2 or 3 hours because I wanted to have 4 pictures on there. But what I did in addition to the 20 seconds to offer an alternative way of learning for the students is on the PowerPoint, there's an audio. So they can use it 2 ways. They can use it as a slideshow where it just goes through with the pictures. And that's how I present it to them the first day of class. And they look at me with the eyes bugging out because I'm like, okay, and 7 weeks you're going to know all this information. And they're like, oh, really? But they also have the option of they can listen to the audio portion just like a regular PowerPoint. Mm-hmm. So they listen to that, and it helps them to focus their learning. I don't give them answers, but I'll say, okay, so if somebody has right lower quadrant pain and then all of a sudden they don't, what are you thinking could be the possibility? What's the reason for that? So they have to look that up if they don't know that from class. And one of my students who actually did a power presentation with me on the Pecha Kucha PowerPoint, she created a study guide, and she said she felt like it was a scavenger hunt for learning.
Oh, wow.
And
that's a great way
I love that term. In fact, she and I are going to be going to a conference. We're leaving tomorrow, and she's going to be co-presenting it with me as well. Isn't that exciting?
That is very exciting.
Because it's in Atlanta, Georgia, but she now lives in Tennessee. So she's going to meet me there, and she's going to present it.
Now, did I hear you earlier say that you have your students make them as well?
And that's a great question. I don't have my students make them as well, but what happened, Anne-Marie, the student who's going to co-present with me, before the final, I was looking and I thought she had just printed out the slides, but then I noticed her pictures were a little different. And I said, oh, well, what'd you do, Anne-Marie? And actually some of her pictures were much nicer than mine. I said, well, what is this? And she said, oh, I looked at what you gave me, Robin, and then I created an outline. And then that's what I used for the study guide. And she said that because she knew that I was so excited about this and I wanted the students to try it. And then I found that other students did the same thing. Like they created an outline with the way that they use to help them to learn. And she was so, and I was very curious to see how it was going to end up after the final. And she had struggled a little bit in the program. And at the end of the final, she came up to me. She's crying. She's holding my hand. She's like, I got a 90. And that's the best I've ever gotten on a final. Because it just stuck. It wasn't her just trying to take notes and memorize. She had pictures. She was going on her scavenger hunt. Right. And she said she just felt as an adult learner, this was something that was going to help her, and that she knew for the next semester she was going to do that just like to help it to stick, to absorb that information.
Well, you answered one of the questions that we like to ask, which is how are your students doing with this new +1 that you're bringing into your classroom? And it sounds like it's going really well.
It is, and just going, I mentioned before, like before implementation of the Pecha Kucha PowerPoint, I would try to offer a review session because I know it's so much information. And I was challenged with the fact that their average on their final was 81. And then once I gave them the Pecha Kucha PowerPoint as a guide, it went up to 87 immediately. And that's where it's held for like the last 2 years, right at 87. So 87, like I feel good about that. Like they're getting the content, they're holding on to it. And also the students have emailed me when they go on to 220 and they'll say, oh, I remembered such and such rule of nines on burns because I saw that picture in the PowerPoint, and that helped them to remember the percentages and remember how to answer that. So yeah, I love that.
I have to say, honestly, I remember that being in cohort 2 with you, I do remember the fact that when you presented the time for class and we had to do it during the whole learning and how excited you were at that moment in time. And that was probably like a year and a half ago or more now, right?
Mm-hmm,
so, I mean, and you've gone and you've presented, you've looked at data and you've presented again and you came here and presented in the center.
Yeah.
So we've done, it's just your enthusiasm and your excitement is very contagious too. So it gets everybody else very excited. So we're very happy to have you here with us today to talk a little bit about it. So I appreciate that.
Yes, thank you so much for coming in. Do we have any other questions? Or?
No, I think she did a fantastic job.
Yeah.
Covered everything.
Interview of one, really.
So thank you so much for joining us today, Robin. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
We'll see you soon.
Yeah, see you soon. See you
and
around
we'll see
campus.
you guys really soon.